Welcome back to day 3 with our wonderful co-host of the week, Jennifer Goforth Gregory. Jennifer shares amazing advice and guidance for freelance content writers in her Facebook group and her newsletter. She's also written the book on the subject. Make sure you check out those links in the show notes. Today, I'm going to turn the tables on Jennifer and ask her a question because I'm honestly curious about this one. Let's see what she has to say. If you're a freelancer, business owner, or anyone who deals with clients, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Teresa Edmond. I've been dealing with clients and running my business for nearly 2 decades. And in that time, I've dealt with my share of doubt, imposter syndrome, and not knowing what to say when a client asks a question I wasn't ready for. I created this podcast to empower you with the boss responses you need to grow your business. Each week, my guest co-host and I will bring you 5 episodes packed with practical insights. Monday through Thursday, we answer your questions. And Fridays, we dive deep to explore how our co-hosts embraced their role as the boss of their business. Welcome to Boss Responses. Jennifer, today's question is one that I see people ask you a lot, and you give a really great answer on it. So I'm going to have you answer this one. I'm interested in working with agencies and having that steady income, but all of my experiences in the past have been bad. How do you choose to work with agencies, and why do you like working with agencies?
Great question. So first, if you've worked with one agency or 3 agencies or 4, you've worked with one agency or 3 agencies or 4. There are great agencies and there are bad agencies. Just like you wouldn't say, I've worked with one company, I'm never going to work with another company. And people generalize them. And I think that's a mistake. So I think that for many niches, agencies are great sources of work for a couple reasons. One is that almost all of my big name clients, Microsoft, IBM, Adobe, Google, have come through agencies. Most of them turn to agencies. That's where you can get the big names that help you further your career. The second is agencies can be a great source of steady work because they have other projects. So if you get on, and they're also a great way to do new things. So if you've worked with a client for a year and you let them know you want to move into a different niche, a lot of times they'll be open to it because they know you don't suck and they know that you're good and they know you'll figure it out. And that's how I got my first white paper and my first case study was also trying new emails, was writing emails was through someone that already knew me with an agency. And so agencies are great for trying new things. Third is, so people tell me that the pay sucks with agencies, and that's not true. There are agencies that pay crappy and there's agencies that pay great. You just have to find them. You also have to be sure that comparing apples to apples. So with a direct client, you're managing the revisions, you're managing the schedule, you're scheduling the interviews. And with an agency, most of the time they're handling that. They found the client, so you don't have the marketing time. You don't have any client calls, they handle it. So you're spending less time as well. So be sure that in most cases, make sure that you are taking that into consideration. If it seems a little less, the hourly rate still could be higher. And I often hear, and a good agency with a good manager handles the client crap, so you don't have to deal with it. A bad agency makes it your problem. It makes it worse. And the other thing is that even within an agency, there can be great project managers and crappy ones. Even at certain agencies, I won't work with certain managers, but we'll work with others. So you have to keep that distinction as well. Is it the specific project manager that's good or effective for your style or not effective? So that's something to think as well.
So you're setting boundaries even with your agency clients.
Oh, yeah.
The first couple of agencies I worked with were very difficult ones, and they honestly weren't much more than content mills. This is back when I very first started. They paid me peanuts, and then I found out, because they accidentally copied me on an email, that they were charging the client like $10,000 for something they paid me $500 for. And that's a big thing. Now, since then, I've encountered a couple of agencies where they were smaller agencies, boutique agencies. They specialized in one thing. Usually I would go in as a ghostwriter because that's my area of specialization. They paid more. And like you said, I did not mind that I made a little bit less than I would with a regular client because I did not have any of that client overhead. But they were really clear with me up front what they would handle and what they wouldn't.
Mhm.
And I got lucky in the fact that they let me do project rates, but I understand a lot of your rates with your agencies are hourly. How do you handle that whenever it's a value-based situation?
So I don't do hourly rates except in I was about to say I don't, but I just did it. I rarely do hourly rates. So I just say I won't unless there's a specific reason. And this was a prestige clip that I recently said yes, that it will get me a lot more work. It was for a company that's on everyone's computer right now and on a topic that I needed. There are exceptions, but normally I will say I don't take projects that pay hourly. What I do is I either walk away or I explain my reasoning, which is, and this goes back to me being very Jennifer. I say, so this is the thing. I have a very hard time figuring out how to bill because I think in my head while I'm driving or walking my dog, and then I end up writing in my head, and at this point they're laughing at me, which is fine. Writing in my head, and then it takes me an hour to write, and it makes no sense that I should get paid $100 for something that only took me an hour because I spent 4 hours thinking about it, and then I feel wrong billing 5 hours, and so now they're really laughing, and so I can't do it. And what I propose, and they'll come back and be like, we bill our clients that way. And I said, how about this? I always charge you 5 hours for a blog post, regardless if it takes me 6, regardless if it takes me 3. And I just put in 5. And then you know what to expect. I don't feel guilty or get cheated, and the client is happy. And sometimes it's a side deal with the manager, and they're happy with that because then they know what to expect.
Right.
You're happy, but I've never had anyone refuse that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'm a big believer that experienced professionals should not be penalized, which paying hourly is, because they can do something faster. But I'm just like you. And I used almost that exact situation when I was explaining book ghostwriting to someone. They're like, I would rather pay hourly so I know exactly how many hours you worked on it. And I was like, one, that's not the way this works. But I do a lot of my thinking and planning on books when I'm doing other things. If I really hit a writer's block situation where I'm like, this chapter is going nowhere, I've spent 2 hours on this, I've done nothing, then I will get in the car and drive one way until the idea comes to me. And then I craft it in my head on the way back. And then I sat down and write it. So sometimes those are really long days. Sometimes I end up in Mississippi. I live in Missouri, but that really is how my brain works. And it makes a big difference. And it's cool that you handle it that way with the agency. So yeah, don't penalize yourself because they charge a specific way. That I guess is the takeaway for that. Still charge your value. It's all about value, people.
Exactly. And this is the other thing. If agencies don't work for you, then that's fine. Then you should not work with them.
Right.
Each of us has to build a business that works for each of us. That said, I think a lot of writers discount agencies because of a few bad experiences, or they heard of a bad experience, or they heard they're low paying. And I think that people should be open-minded to finding the great agency and not just discounting them.
All right, there you have it from the expert, people. And we are going to link in the show notes to an article of Jennifer's about how she chooses and finds agencies to work with. And then you're going to be on her blog. You should just read it all because it's solid gold. All right, thank you, Jennifer. And we'll talk tomorrow on the last question of the week.